Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's OpenJ9 community call. I don't believe we have anybody lined up to give a lightning talk this week. So I will remind everyone to please add your name and your company or your affiliation to the Google Docs note. The link to that's in the Slack channel. And then I guess we'll open up to any community questions or any general OpenJ9 questions people may have. All right, given that most of the people on this call, or rather everybody at this point, is an IBMer, we may as well jump into more of the general business and come back to the community side if others show up. So, Irina, are you ready to take us through the issues? Irina, you're on mute. If you're there. Okay, can somebody confirm that you can hear me? Because otherwise I'm starting to feel...
Yes, I can hear you, Dan. I can't hear Irina, same as you. It's all right.
I was starting to worry that I was just talking to myself, but...
I can hear you.
All right, then I guess we will skip the Irina's usual update around work items and issues. So, yeah, Irina just reached out to me, let me know she's having some networking issues, so we can come back to that later.
Actually, sorry, finally. So, sorry about that. I was on mute. I was on mute on twice, both on my machine and on Zoom. So now this explains it. So we have a small increase in the issues and we have a small increase in the PRs as well. Very small. The issues is 2%, the PRs is 5%. I was looking to the PRs, they're getting solved as of now. That's all I have in general. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question. Do we have the notion of some must fixes for the upcoming 0.9 release? Do we know if there's anything that we need to fix in order to be able to declare that done?
So there is a list, right? There is that, I think it's called the milestone list or something like that. And those are the things that we are still trying to fix. So we do have, well, a notion. It's a flexible notion, in my view. Does it answer your question?
Sorry, I'm the one with mute problems now. Kind of, well, yes, it does, but I'm just wondering whether it might be worth having, for the purpose of consuming this meeting, the kind of next release and if there's what that number is, in order that we can see whether there's anything that needs to be addressed or anything that's going to hold it up.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I can get that going for the next meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If there are no other questions, then we can talk about machines. Is Charlie on the call? All right. I know he's continuing to work with the University of New Brunswick on machine setups or on lab availability there. I don't have a concrete update on that. I know he had been hoping to have more progress over the next little bit. But I suspect that as we move towards the summer, we'll need to get that progress going before we may hit summer breaks. So I will continue to talk with Charlie to find out the status on that. Are there any platforms that people are concerned about not having enough machines at OpenJ9? All right. Moving on to builds and platforms. There's the issue for JRE packages. Stuart, you had made an update on this. Do you want to give us an update?
Yep, we've got the builds able to run, and they're producing, well, running at Adopt, and they're producing both JDK and JRE packages. I guess the next step is to get testing in place. I know Shelley has looked at what is required for that. Once we get it through testing, we can look at what's required to make that into a release alongside the JDK builds.
That's great news. Thanks for all your work on that, Stuart.
No worries.
The next item here is the large heap or the non-compressed refs packages. Teresa has done the work on the OpenJ9 and the extensions repos to get us to be able to build those packages again, and has opened an issue at Adopt for creating these packages. Just reading that item, I see that it may be a while until this is able to be picked up. So it may not make this release.
What's interesting is that I don't think there's a ton of work related to picking that up. I think it's just a matter of adding it to our build pipelines and having.
It is, that's true, but I think Martin is obviously working on, or Martin and his team are working on a bit of a rewrite of the build script, so I think he's slightly reluctant to add it into the existing ones until that rewrite is complete. Otherwise, it's basically double fixing the work. If I get any time, I can have a look at it. Like, as you say, I suspect it won't be massively difficult. Yeah, so it becomes a matter of what the priority of that is compared to other things at the moment.
I think the other complexities are probably around exposing this on the website. Or is there any?
Yes, indeed. Yep. I mean, there will need to be some work done even to make it into showing up as a nightly on the website, similar to the JRE packages and also the Win32 ones. So they've all got the same issue. We haven't come to Win32 yet, but that's just been created as an issue as well. It's all got the same issue. We need to kind of, the first step is to put them into Jenkins build, then get them into nightlies and test them, and then look at promoting them to releases.
Yeah, and I will say the follow-up to that is adding those tests where, you know, we haven't got more machines, so we'll have to carefully make sure that we can run all the testing that we want to run, or at least or minimize the amount of testing on certain things.
And of course, we have to consider, you know, what we want to run the JCK on as well, which is additional testing that is not insignificant and has a very restricted set of machines as well, and has a lot of manual effort.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess the point is not major technical issues around this, more finding who can take stuff on and who can turn stuff on, and whether or not we have enough resources.
All right. I've made a note of that. One other item in this builds and platforms is the compile levels for the PPC Linux builds. Currently, OpenJ9 is compiling on Red Hat 7, or sorry, not Red Hat 7, on Ubuntu 16. And I think it would be better if we could move the compiles to CentOS 7. This will ensure that we've got an older glibc level that can run on all the most popular OS distributions. So I've started a a Slack discussion for that at Adopt as well.
Yeah, I think at Adopt we're already starting to move to Red Hat as far as possible. We haven't got that fully in place yet on all architectures, but yeah, that is certainly what we're planning to do generally at Adopt. So that shouldn't be too much of a controversial issue, hopefully.
All right, excellent.
We've got some issues with the Z-Linux Red Hat machine at the moment that's running very, very slowly. So at the moment, some of those builds are still coming out on Ubuntu, but in general, that is the approach, is to move to Red Hat for exactly the reasons you've cited. I think on some platforms, we have a Red Hat 6 box, in fact, that we can use, and some of them we've had to use a 7.4, I think.
Okay, perfect. If there's anything that I can be doing to help with that, please let me know.
Will do.
All right. Are there any other discussions or issues around this that we need to talk about today? All right.
So, sorry, is it still true that nothing's happening on macOS? I think there's quite a lot of interest in macOS.
It does seem to come up quite regularly. I keep getting asked about that one. So, good question.
I have not been able to get back to resurrecting my branch for that. If there are others who want to jump in and run with that, feel free. I've got a small set of changes that are somewhat stale now in a branch on my hard drive I need to get back to. It's hard to get there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. End user experience. Is there anything in this section anybody on the call would like to talk about? All right. The upcoming 0.9.0 release. Our release is approved. And so now I think we're at the point where the major thing we need to look at is timeline of when we want to be doing the branch. I think we'd like to we should aim to get this done in May. The branch is created and try to get the builds pulled together. Are there any issues people believe need to be addressed before we can proceed with the creating that branch? So,
Well, not if there aren't any blocking issues. That's kind of where I was coming from earlier with, do we have a list of what we think needs to be in feature-wise and what needs to be fixed bug-wise? So as long as that's all clean, then fine.
I will try and take a pass through the issues today or tomorrow. Maybe I'll sit down with Peter Shipton, and the two of us will go through and see if we can get a set of issues and ensure that anything that's critical and needs to be addressed has been added to the list.
As an aside to that, are you producing some kind of README or release notes that say which issues are included?
So as part of the release process, we create a GitHub release, which includes a lot of the information. We also create a new and noteworthy, or a release note, a release note document that has a lot of this in it as well. So.
And then presumably that appears as part of the build when it appears on Adopt later, all right? So if you have the build, you can see which of the bug fixes and features are included.
Are you asking about a complete features list, or are you asking about sort of the larger more headline item?
Either or, really. What information are we putting out that says what's in it, that is user consumable?
So we add some of that to the, looking for where it is. Sue has been producing some of this documentation for us. The one for the 0.8 release is in the OpenJ9 doc folder under release notes. There's a 0.8 folder with a 0.8 MB in it that describes the supported platforms, some of the known issues, and a list of some FB related failures and areas that are things that are missing, like API doc or unsupported extensions. I can paste the link to the 0.8 one into the Slack channel.
Might be faster than the navigation I'm trying to do now.
There is one for 0.9 that Sue's been working on, but it's in her fork. I don't think there's any pull request for it right now.
Anyway, the answer generally seems to be yes. That information is available in the new build, the new version.
Yes, and if it's not, if there's other information you believe should be there, please raise that on one of the Slack discussions or here, and we'll see what we can do to get that addressed.
Yep, thanks.
Is there any other discussion we want to have around this release?
Sorry, I dropped for a few seconds there, but I was going to ask, what are we claiming for platform coverage and support, and do we have those binaries being produced at Adopt, and are they green?
We'd really like to see the Win32 binaries in this release.
So as long as there's some kind of list that the Adopt people can see.
Yes.
I suspect, unless anyone knows otherwise, it would be the normal set of the 3 Linux architectures, XP, Z, AIX, and the 2 Windows platforms, right? Which is basically corresponds to all the jobs that Adopt has for OpenJ9 JDK8.
Yeah, that sounds like the right list.
So there's 2 special builds. There's a 32-bit Windows build, and there's a non-compressed refs X Linux build.
Yeah, that last one, the one about compressed refs, has not been produced yet. So we've got a requirement in, but it hasn't been addressed as yet. Everything else is, well, apart from the Windows 32 one as well. Yeah, okay. That sounds right. So we've got all the ones we have, plus those extra 2, Win32 and the non-compressed refs. If nothing else, I'm aware of it, so it won't get lost.
And I guess the other thing to note for the AIX build is that for the testing, we're stealing the build machines on the build machine on the weekend to run some testing, but we don't run as much testing on that build as the other platforms.
And none at all from a JCK perspective. But that's the same as the previous release, so there's no change to that.
Do we know who supplied the AIX machines? Is it the OSOUL?
Yes, that's correct. OSUOSL. Oregon State University, I believe.
Okay, we may want to see if there's more machines there that we can get to extend our testing for AIX.
Yep, I think that's the general problem that Adopt have got. And yeah, we're still trying to progress that.
There is an open issue for it. I'm not sure.
I'll see if I can push Tim again on that.
All right. Any other issues we want to discuss around the release?
I think originally we had hoped the test goal would be that all of the known OpenJDK regression test failures that have been reported would be corrected. I don't know that we're going to get there, but I guess when you and Pete go through the list of open issues, you'll find that there has been some progress, but not complete running green scenario. We still have tests in the exclude file at present.
Okay. If there's particular tests in there that you believe need to be addressed before we can do another release, please call them out.
Yeah, so did Simon had brought this up earlier. Do we actually have a tag for must fix?
We can assign them to the milestone, the 0.9 milestone.
Ah, okay.
There may also be a high priority or a must fix tag. There's definitely a high priority tag. I'm not sure about a must fix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we discussed for the the 8 release, because we hadn't been previously using this test material, we weren't going to be overly concerned about it since we're running the full set of functional and system tests as well. But yeah, I'll take a look.
All right. Any other issues to call out? Okay. My apologies. I did not get a tweet out about this particular call this week. I'll aim to address that for next week. Shelley, you had mentioned that you had some blogs and videos on testing OpenJ9.
Yeah, we'll be posting one probably by the end of this week. We have a short video plus a couple of paragraphs, and that'll start off our series of blog entries for test. There are some additional ones in the queue now that we can be adding to the blog. I think Sue's working on one for the first lightning talk that Mark did, and we have the next 2 lightning talks as well that we should just produce an additional blog post for, with call outs to additional information for people if they're interested. So that's on the go. You probably know, but many others might not know, we have a small group of folks that are part of a content team that will help kind of review and edit these entries, just so we have hopefully start building a continuous flow of content out from the blog. By next week, should be able to report that we have 1 or 2 new posts.
Excellent. Thanks, Shelley. All right. Is there any other business anyone would like to discuss? All right, then. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll meet again next week.